When you marry someone, you never think you'll end up in a courtroom fighting to prove the child in your house isn't yours. But that's where I found myself. My name's Daniel. I'm 34, an electrician, and until last year, I thought my marriage was solid. My wife, Hannah, and I had been together for 6 years. We had our routines, our date nights, our arguments, but nothing that made me think she was unfaithful. So when she told me she was pregnant, I was happy. Scared, but happy. 9 months later, our son Mason was born. I loved him instantly. Late nights, early mornings, diaper duty. I did it all. I didn't even mind the stress because I thought we were a family. Then came the first crack. One night, about a year after Mason was born, I found Hannah texting someone late at night. When I asked who it was, she said it was just a coworker. Her tone was defensive, sharp, too sharp. I brushed it off, not wanting to start a fight. But then came the whispers from mutual friends, the strange absences, the sudden girls' nights she never used to take. Something wasn't right. I confronted her gently one evening, asking if there was someone else. She laughed, called me paranoid, and told me to stop acting like I didn't trust her. But the seed of doubt had been planted. When Mason turned 2, a fight between us escalated, and she screamed words I'll never forget. You wouldn't even know if he was yours or not. Everything froze. She tried to backtrack immediately, saying she didn't mean it, but I couldn't shake it. A week later, when she was out of the house, I ordered a DNA test kit and tested Mason's DNA against mine. I waited days for the results, my stomach in knots. When the results came, I just sat there staring. Probability of paternity, 0%. My hands shook. I had raised a child for 2 years who wasn't even mine. And Hannah had known. When I confronted her, she cried, begged me not to tell anyone, begged me to think about Mason. But the begging stopped when I told her I was leaving. That's when she showed me a DNA report of her own, one that said Mason was mine. At first, I doubted myself. Could the lab I used have made a mistake? But then I looked closer at Hannah's report. The font looked slightly off, the lab name was missing their official watermark, and the date was suspiciously the same day I had confronted her, not the day the sample was taken. I took her report to an independent lab and asked them to verify its authenticity. 2 days later, the answer came back. The report was fake. Someone had altered an old template to make it look real. That was my breaking point. I packed a bag and told Hannah I was staying with my brother until we figured this out legally. She called me selfish, a coward, said I was abandoning my family. But the word "my" felt like poison now. I hired a lawyer. The first thing he told me was to petition the court for a legally recognized DNA test. When the results came back, once again proving I wasn't the father, I filed for divorce and immediately stopped paying any household bills. That's when Hannah went on the offensive. She dragged me to court, claiming I had a legal duty to support Mason because I had acted as his father for 2 years. Her lawyer even presented her fake report to the judge. But my lawyer was ready. He had not only the authentic DNA results, but also a forensic expert who confirmed Hannah's report was forged. The judge's expression when he heard that was something I'll never forget. "Mrs. Blake," he said, "you have presented falsified evidence to this court. That is a criminal offense." Hannah went pale. But I wasn't done. If Mason wasn't mine, then someone else was responsible for him. And I was going to find out who. It took weeks of digging, but eventually, I tracked down the man Hannah had been texting that night months ago. His name was Derek, a guy from her gym. I confronted him in the parking lot one afternoon. At first, he denied everything, but when I showed him Mason's picture, he turned white. "Look, man," he said. "It was a mistake. She told me you two were separated." "She lied," I said flatly. "And now you're going to take responsibility." Filed a case against Derek, presenting the DNA results and all the evidence I had gathered. Texts, photos, witness statements. The court proceedings were tense. Hannah tried to weasel her way in, claiming Derek had manipulated her, that I was still somehow responsible. But the judge wasn't buying it. When Derek was called to the stand, he was pale and sweating. He fumbled through his answers, clearly unprepared for the reality of legal scrutiny. I sat in the courtroom, watching him squirm, feeling a sense of justice I hadn't felt in months. "Mr. Carter, the judge said. You are legally responsible for child support. You will provide financial support for Mason from the date of his birth. Derek nodded, defeated. He couldn't deny the evidence. The DNA was absolute. After the court session, I stepped outside into the late afternoon sun and took a deep breath. The weight that had been crushing me for months finally lifted. I wasn't a victim anymore. I had been manipulated, betrayed, and lied to, but I had fought back. And I had won. Hannah stood behind me, her face pale, eyes wide. I never thought you'd actually do it, she stammered. I looked at her, calm but firm. I didn't do it for revenge, Hannah. I did it because the truth matters. And because I refused to be made a fool of in my own life. She had no words. Nothing I hadn't already heard before, excuses and lies. Over the next few weeks, I cut all financial ties with her and ensured that Derek fulfilled his obligations. Mason, of course, didn't understand everything that had happened. He was just a little boy who needed stability. And for that, I made sure his life remained as normal as possible. I rebuilt my home, my life, and my trust in myself. I realized that betrayal can be painful, humiliating, and dangerous. But it also reveals who we really are, and who we refuse to become. By taking action, I didn't just protect myself. I ensured that justice was served. The lies ended, the manipulations were exposed, and I regained control over my life.